Please welcome to the stage James McLeod, Director of Community at FinTech Open Source Foundation.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your lunch or bringing your lunch in here. I'm James McLeod, FINOS Director of Community, and you may have seen on LinkedIn or you may have been to our Big Boost Mondays event that we ran through the FINOS DEI SIG at Morgan Stanley at the beginning of this week. The diversity, equity and inclusion within the FinTech Open Source Foundation is at the center of everything that we're doing and everything that we are looking to achieve through open source in FinTech. And also, within our banks and financial services institutions. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists for this lunchtime session. So please welcome Citi, Morgan Stanley, and Turntable to the stage. Over to Serge. So Serge, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, James, and thank you so much everyone who's made out for our panel today. As you can see on the screen, we're actually going to be having a conversation focused on the impact of community investment on diversity recruiting in particular. My name is Serge Bettencourt. I'm representing Citigroup Client Onboarding and Data Services Technology, and I am joined here today with my three illustrious panelists over here. To start off, we have Rita Chaturvedi, who is the Head of Release and Change Management for Wealth Management Technology at Morgan Stanley. We also have Chris Lemoine, who is a Director from Global Spread Technology at Citigroup, and then we're also joined by Sam Moorhouse, who is the CEO of Turntabl. So to get us started, we're actually going to pose a question to our panelists to kind of get us introduced. Rita, if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about yourself and your experience with community investment to get us started.
Thank you, Serge, for having me here on this panel. So as Serge said, I'm Rita Chaturvedi. I'm at Morgan Stanley, and I'm the Head of Release Engineering and Change Management for Wealth Management Technology. I've been with Morgan Stanley for 13 years now, and my journey with community investment and engagement began when I joined Morgan Stanley first. And I joined the employee affiliation groups of Women in Technology and People Engagement Program. Morgan Stanley does a lot in terms of investing in the communities where we operate and giving back to society. We not only invest directly through the firm, but also the firm encourages employees to become engaged in those programs as well. So as I joined Women in Technology, I started to learn about these different ways of engaging to invest back in the community that we are operating in. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but that's where my journey started.
Beautiful, thank you so much for sharing. Next, will Chris pose the same question.
Right.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Chris Lemoine. I'm a director within our Markets Technology division, specifically within spread products, mainly corporate mortgages and munis trading. For that division, I'm the tech lead for sales, emerging markets, and short-term credit trading. In addition to the day job, which is already multiple hats, I do also lead and co-chair our Black and Latinx talent stream within our tech organization as part of our diversity inclusion board for our technology division. And I help to lead our external partnerships focused on diversity recruiting, next generation talent pipelines, and community investment.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. And Sam, off to you for the question.
Thanks very much, Serge. Yes. Well, at the moment I run Turntabl, which is a software agency based in Ghana in West Africa. For those of you at the back, I'm the white guy. But my journey with diversity and inclusion started at the beginning of my career in the mid-2000s, where for an investment bank to hire a man from the north of England was itself a diversity play. Like, I came up at a time when banks in London hired from Oxford and Cambridge and universities in the southeast of England, and so I've benefited a little bit. Thankfully, a lot's changed since then. You know, that's what passed for diversity in the mid-2000s. A lot's changed since then. What we do now, one of my proudest moments was last year. So we joined FINOS as a silver sponsor at Turntable. And we heard earlier about the hackathon, the accessibility hackathon, and Turntable actually tabled 2 teams, and we won 2 out of the 3 gold medals. So it's been a real journey. We're super proud of that.
Great. Yeah, round of applause, right? Yeah. No, thank you so much, and please do not diminish your allyship. So thank you so much for joining us again. To our next question, right? So we're going to ask Chris. You know, topic of the panel really is about community investment and how that leads to more diverse recruiting. So, from your perspective, how does community investment lead to a more diverse pipeline of talent?
It's a good question. It's an important question. So I think we have to think about it from a couple of ways. I think the first way that community investment impacts diversity recruiting is really from an exposure perspective, right? There's really 2 reasons why anybody pursues any career path. They have to, 1, know it exists, and 2, they have to believe they can do it, right? And then the journey starts from there. So as organizations, when you invest in communities, you're exposing them to opportunities to career paths. You're helping to instill that belief by giving them the resources needed. But in turn, you're also exposing yourselves to the same communities and breaking down preconceived notions, barriers, biases when you start to deal with people on a human basis and understand what really they're about and what their core capabilities are. Ultimately, you've heard the phrase, talent is everywhere, opportunity isn't. By investing in communities, you are bringing opportunity to talent that hasn't had access to that opportunity before. And when you give them the resources needed, you're taking people who have an innate ability to be great engineers, great developers, great problem solvers, and just giving them the tools to really make it an even playing field. We use the term underserved for a reason. So this is really to help correct years of historical context to really give us an opportunity to have a diversified candidate slate that is viable for us to really benefit from the full talent that this world has to offer.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Rita, same question to you.
So I'll answer it a little bit differently than Chris. Chris talked about bringing opportunity to talent. I'll talk a little bit about bringing talent to opportunity. Because as hiring managers, we all understand that the challenges in getting a diverse pipeline of candidates when we are looking to hire people. So the way we at Morgan Stanley have been trying to solve this problem is multiple ways. We go to the grassroots level. So an example being our engagement with SIFMA, which is now called Tech Breakthrough Program, where we work with high school students from underprivileged backgrounds in New York City area, from New York City school system. We bring them into the firm for 3 days, train them on a programming language, and mentor them. At the end of 3 days, those students actually create applications. So they come up with ideas, and on the 3rd day, they actually make a presentation of that product that they have created and learned to program in those 3 days. Another example would be the Grace Hopper conference, where I just recently attended the conference, and I was actually able to hire somebody for my own team through that engagement. So that is another way of bringing in diverse talent into the pipeline. Another example would be our engagement with an organization called Europe, which is again working with underprivileged and non-privileged background people, and basically they train them for 6 months, place them with firms like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, etc. And then at the end of those 6 months after the internship, the firm has the option to hire the people that just interned with us. All of this does require a lot of investment on part of Morgan Stanley and its employees, because we're investing our time and money and energy into these communities and with these organizations, with the hope that this will enrich our talent pipeline with diverse pool of candidates.
Thank you so much, Rita. And then Sam, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit on that topic as well from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a bunch of reasons why people would spend their time and invest time and energy in diversity and inclusion initiatives. I think one of the things that's really important is the leverage that we have as employees in large companies, and particularly in the financial services industry. Like, there's always opportunities to do more and to do well, and all you have to do is think about things like donation matching and things like volunteer hours that really show you where you can spend your time. And I think particularly for junior people in the room, one of the things that's difficult is knowing how much to stand out and how much of your time and energy to put in and how much you think your voice should be heard. And I think we can say that senior people in your organizations are crying out for junior people to go and do the work. They're really crying out for junior people to spend the time and the energy. So do go for it.
Thank you all so much, and I appreciate the diverse perspectives that you've all lent to responding to that question. I think it sets us up for some of the additional discussion that we're going to have for the remainder of the panel, right? So Sam, just to kind of follow up off the back of your response, from your perspective, how can open source teams and projects benefit from more inclusive and diverse teams?
How can we benefit is such a great question, right? It's a classic question, and I think there's a few answers. One of which by now everyone knows and we ought not to question. There's like an innate benefit to working with diverse teams. All we have to do is look at the machine learning testing space to know that diversity of thought and diversity of experience and diversity of background is crucial in building systems that work with human beings. There's also a kind of like a strong ethical mandate, which is it's just the right thing. We know that as engineers we have something in our minds, our experiences, the work that we've done, which if we can distill it and transmit it to the right people, can make a change to their salary levels, which can lead to generational change in wealth. So by encouraging diversity in our teams, we're delivering benefits in lots of ways. There's a couple of other things as well which are kind of less talked about. The first thing, when I speak with clients and I try to sell turntable services to clients, the first slide on my pitch deck is a world map. Because, you know, if we have offices in New York or London or Shanghai or Hong Kong, all you have to do, instead of looking east or west, just look south. Look to the global south where there are people. And to echo Chris's point, you know, we know now for a fact that talent is evenly distributed. And our job and our role is to offer opportunities to people because it's opportunity that's patchy. And then the final thing I'll say, and I'll keep this short, is that we've all heard about the talent pipeline. And I think if you imagine in your head the same way that I do, it's kind of this lie that there are hordes of screaming women and black people and people from the Philippines just like desperate to get into this industry that we've created, that we've kind of turned quite toxic. And it's just not true. I mean, it's a lie in Ghana as much as it's a lie in the UK and in New York. But there is a time factor to growing talent, and that's where we have to invest. Because if you use your leverage now, and you use your privilege to hire people from diverse backgrounds, from underserved and underprivileged backgrounds, from non-traditional backgrounds, then those people will, over time, when we work with them, when we nurture them, when we offer them opportunities and experiences, they'll grow into senior engineers, and they'll be able to use their representation to hire more people from those backgrounds. It's simple maths. And the more engineers we have, the more good engineers we have. So for me, it's a maths play, it's a culture play, it's the map. The question answers itself.
Good business sense, yeah?
Good business
sense. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, our next question, Chris, we're actually going to come back over to you. We were wondering if you might provide your perspective on the distinction between, you know, true community investment versus performative community investment.
Where can I start? This is an excellent question. And I think it's important that people understand the difference, right? You know, especially if we look at this in the context of post-George Floyd, right? You know, that was a moment in time, right, when many organizations felt intense pressure to act, make a statement, some gave a financial donation, et cetera, right? All these things are important, and there are important steps that many organizations did take that historically many of them might not have taken previously. That is good. But when we talk about performative versus true, I think it's really about the motivation for the action, and I think motivations and intent always come to light over time. So if this is a thing that you did to either avoid scrutiny or to just mitigate risk of being, mitigate brand risk during a sensitive time, then naturally what happens is that over time, as this no longer becomes the hot trend, or as you start to see any kind of wave or backlash, then these efforts die out. There's no true thought in terms of sustainability. It is a very much one and done thing, and you kind of wash your hands and move forward. When we talk about true community investment, I think there's multiple layers. It's not motivated by so much by image and perception. It's more motivated by what is the actual impact? What are the outcomes we're looking to achieve? Are we listening to that community? Are we trying to understand and really address the core fundamental issues? Are we willing to take a back seat and come without our prejudgments and without our directives and actually try to adapt a solution that meets the needs of that community? And long after that the trend has faded, it's not a moment, but a movement that continues. So you're continuing the conversation, you're looking at outcomes, you're willing to try things even if they may fail for the sole purpose of learning so that you can continue to adapt and evolve. The same way we do with any other engineering or problem-solving type projects that we do, we're vested in trying to find the best answers, best solutions, so that we can have a lasting impact that really does transcend through generations and shifts the posterity of these communities. So that is really, when I think about the difference between performative versus true, is what's driving you and how committed are you? When the backlash comes, are you taking a step back or are you doubling down? That will show you who's performative versus who's truly invested in these communities.
Well, thank you so much for that very passionate response. So appreciated for sure. He lives it, so I think it's very, very evident. We're actually going to move on to our next question, Rita, and this one's for you. Again, the idea here is really about engaging folks as part of this conference, but then also to inspiring action, right? And so for folks that maybe are a little bit less familiar on how they can go ahead and get involved, from your perspective, like how does one get started in community investment when operating within the structure of financial services or a corporation, et cetera?
So as Sam said in the beginning, that the leverage for people with big companies is great. I would say start with finding out the programs within your own companies, within whatever organizations you work with, become engaged there. Companies like Morgan Stanley, Citi, we all offer a lot of ways to engage with communities and invest back in communities. So that's one way to do it. There is also things that people can do on their own, and a lot of people do, really. So going back to, I know people personally who do go back to schools and teach kids how to make robos or other STEM-related skill sets. That's another way of becoming engaged and trying to encourage people to adopt careers in technology, answering questions for them in terms of how they can choose a career in technology or a career in finance, etc. We just had an event this past Monday, the Big Boost Monday at Morgan Stanley 522 building, which is just about that, just creating awareness and engagement with people and encouraging them to ask questions and get in touch with people who are in these areas already, to work with them, network with them, and ask questions and become more involved. But also I think that the other thing that people can do at a personal level is diversity is one part of the equation, but there is also equity and inclusion, which all of us can encourage within our own teams. Even if you have a team of 2 people, 5 people, 200, 800, whatever, if you promote equity and inclusion within your own space, you can make a big difference in that regard as well.
Thank you so much, Rita. Chris, over to you for that same question.
A lot of great points.
Yeah.
A lot of great points. Maybe I'll give an example of one of our community investment initiatives and kind of talk through what that process looks like so that people get a grasp for it. So one initiative we had was a partnership with Udacity, the e-learning platform, where we sponsored $100K in scholarships to help 100 students from a specific community, underserved background, New York City metro area, to upskill in tech. But how did we get there? I think first it started with having a prior understanding of the need. So why did we even think this was relevant? We spent time going to different career fairs for different D&I conferences, and we saw that a lot of people were looking for very cost-effective means of trying to transition into the tech industry. So we knew there was a need there. We knew a lot of people were looking at online certifications, but they had no idea how many online certificates or accreditations they actually needed to actually be viable. So we recognized the problem because we were engaged with the community, so we knew it was real and we knew it was a pain point. All right. This way, when an organization like Udacity came to talk with us, we already had a view in terms of how we could leverage their platform to make it better, right? And have an impact on communities as a whole. So we had the touch, we were able to understand, then we were able to shift it in terms of how can we, what is the impact story? So we knew the problem statement and we said, okay, if the firm is willing to invest this much to provide these kind of resources, then we're able to upskill X amount of people who maybe came from a below 50K income per year background and help them transition to tech where they're presumably making greater than 90K or more. Then we could say that there's a clear economic impact on the 100K we put down, train 100 people. Even if 20 people make it, that's like $1 million in like annual wealth that you're adding into underserved community. So then the impact story is there, right? Then you think about how to de-risk it. Okay, how do we make it credible? Are we able to put our name behind it? Are we actually looking through the curriculum to say that these are the modules that we think as a firm make somebody viable to actually be an entry-level candidate into a tech organization? How do we prove it? Are we willing to actually hire them and actually bring them into our organization and demonstrate that they're able to do the work? So even though it wasn't a recruiting initiative, we're still willing to put our own products, infrastructure, teams, frontline working with people to demonstrate the capabilities, right? And then that helps to mold the overall story, and it gives us the firsthand learning, does this actually work or not, right? And then how do we de-risk it? So how do we have an appropriate trial period? How do we assess? How do we have the right sponsors involved, all right, so that they have a vested interest in these outcomes? How do we explain it to the organization so that they understand the context behind what we're trying to solve and they're looking to infuse their ideas into it? These are the kind of things that makes a real community investment idea tangible, and you're able to help drive what I would call like a win-win-win. It makes sense for the people involved, it makes sense for the organization, and it makes sense for the broader community. So these are the kind of things that I think would encourage with people to think about how to start their own community investment initiative, but I guess that's an appropriate concept.
No, thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate your perspective there. And then, folks, we're going to try and maybe take a question or two from the audience before we close. But our final question for the panel, Sam, we'll start with you if you don't mind. What are one or two tactical actions members of our audience could take with them, like out the room, to kind of get themselves started on this journey toward leveraging community investment for diversity recruiting?
100%. Yeah, thanks very much. So a couple of quick wins. At Turntable, we run a summer program every year. It's a non-profit called Global Code. And we teach our students in Ghana, university students, professional software engineering skills. Come to Ghana with us, volunteer, we'll help you get there. That's a thing you can do if you're a software engineer or a technologist. If you're a hiring manager, hire people from diverse backgrounds. I can help, come and speak to me. If you're a senior leader in technology, bring a team of your executive leaders to Ghana for a week. We'll host you. It will be transformative, it will change your life. Jump on a plane, that's the thing you can do.
All right, beautiful, thank you so much. And then Rita, same question to you.
just become involved. Find out how you can get involved. There is no magic wand to this. You just have to find out the program on your own or through your firm or organization, wherever you work, and just start to get involved. The key is to be passionate about the cause. If you are, then you will find a way to become involved and give back.
Thank you so much. And then Chris, to you.
Absolutely. Great points by both Sam and Rita. I would say for me, my first point of advice would be to block out time. Like so many people are interested and these kind of causes may resonate with them. But we are all challenged for time, right? When I first started in this space, I was questioning, whether I had the time. I was between roles, teams, etc. My mentor looked at me and he said, if not you, then who? And then I just stopped. So literally just blocking 1 hour a week, you'll be surprised with how much you can do in a space like this. I think 2 is focus on the learning and understanding. Like if you can really listen to people, understand their stories, and relate to them on a human level, then that will drive the passion, like Rita was talking about. And ultimately, this is an audience of engineers and problem solvers and leaders. Once you have the time, you have the context, and the passion is there, it will be inevitable that you'll start to drive starts towards solutioning, because you've already made that time invested. Now you're personally vested and you're willing to make that sacrifice. So like Rita said, it's not magic, it's just work. And are we willing to do the work? We can't control everything, but there are things, tangible things that anybody can do if you're really willing to put the time and put the effort behind it.
Thank you so much for that. We're just about at time. Do we happen to have maybe like a question or two from the audience by chance? Anyone? All right, beautiful. This person in the front row here.
Hi, thank you, panelists. That was really interesting. Rita, you mentioned the difference between diversity and inclusion. Diversity, I think, is quite concrete and quite easy to measure. And inclusion, I think, is more intangible. So we can reach 50-50 men and women, but it can still be all men that are the senior technical leaders. So do you think we're doing well at Morgan Stanley on inclusion, and how do you think we can measure some of the intangible benefits of diversity?
It's hard to measure the inclusion quotient, so to speak. But I think it all starts with awareness and sensitizing people towards the need for inclusion and the value of inclusion. Morgan Stanley, for example, has done a lot of work, especially wealth management technology, a lot of work in that aspect. We work with an organization called NCWIT, I think a lot of people here are familiar with NCWIT. And we trained all of our leadership over a period of a couple of years on what diversity is, what is equity, and why is inclusion important, and arriving at common language around these topics, and just basically created ambassadors within the organization who will continue that momentum and that journey for years to come. But as I said before, inclusion is basically every person's responsibility in the organization. It cannot be just the leadership's responsibility. If you're leading a project, for example, are you listening to the different opinions? Are you open to listening different perspectives and so on? That is inclusion. Giving people voices and a seat at the table, that's where it all starts from. And the organizations can do training and awareness exercise, which is a good starting point, but end of the day, it is everybody's responsibility to make sure that we are creating an inclusive environment for whichever team or group that we are operating in.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your question. Gentlemen over to my left, you had a question? It'll be our final for the session. Yeah. Sure. Udacity? Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you should get the FINOS people to fund training for underserved communities in the way that they're trying to use their own
Absolutely. Exactly. So I think, the whole idea, for one, there's no one firm that's going to solve this problem, and I think that's a big reason why we're all here. We recognize the value of collaboration, and I think it's very important that we share some of these ideas, because there is power in replication and learning from each other's challenges and successes, right? So you're absolutely right. There's nothing that we did here that couldn't be replicated by other firms and by other groups, right? And all we have to do is really understand as an industry, what are the skill sets we value? How can we really take a measured approach towards upskilling people in untraditional ways? And then how are we willing to back them up so that they know that the time that they spent here is actually going to yield towards a result, as opposed to them taking an endless stream of online courses because it's either free or they heard it will be good and have no idea whether it's actually going to land in the job. And you have managers who will look at their resume and only say, oh, did you work in banking, e-trading, XYZ? And if not, I will not consider you. So on both ends of the spectrum, it is important, and I think it can easily be replicated across multiple firms and multiple types of learning platforms. Glad to share more if anyone's ever interested.
Thank you so much. So thank you to our panelists, Rita, Chris, and Sam. Thank you so much for joining us on the stage today. Thank you all so much for coming out and engaging with us as well. Should you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us throughout the conference, or also on LinkedIn with any follow-up questions that you may have. So thank you all again. Have a great rest of your conference. Cheers. Thank you.